starting. Any public comments? Hearing none, move along. Minutes of Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025. Hi, Jackie, welcome.
I move that we accept the minutes of July 22nd.
Moved, any second?
Second.
All in favor? Steve, can you just say aye for the tape?
Hi,
Thank you. All right. Oh, thank you. All right, so we are basically preparing for next week's meeting. So looking to you for any additional questions, comments, areas of coverage, questions you might have of Jackie or Ziad, and items that we definitely will want GHD maybe to cover next week.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the focus. So
I guess I just wanted to ask you that everybody was able to get to the SharePoint site. Stephen, were you able to get in?
yeah, mostly, yep.
I can't.
You can't.
yeah.
Jackie gave me a
Oh,
cloud site. It died. The authenticator and the whole Microsoft thing is just. Just doesn't work for me. Somebody who lived his life in
I know,
IT.
say something better than
Well, I've never been a Microsoft person. I'll work with that.
We can,
So Jackie gave me a site that can get your stuff on.
okay, so she set up something, so, okay, because otherwise we could try to share it through the cloud or something and do individual file sharing, but if Jackie
Yeah,
can set up.
I go to the authenticator, I put the number in, because I don't know who you are.
And we'll have a bigger set of plans so we can look next week, so that will help. I'm sure they'll do.
Yeah, they'll have they'll have hard copies and
Oh,
there'll be a big hefty set.
Yeah. I got a bigger computer screen, so I'm happy to do it.
well, I'm trying to get it on my PC. I can get it on my on my iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the PC. Well, first of all, Authenticator doesn't run on a Windows machine.
Right.
Even though it's a Microsoft product.
So in the packet, we have the list of spec list. But there's also on the line was the proposed, I think it was draft agenda. And so
For next
Jeff,
week's meeting.
has there been any changes?
Just
No.
draft agenda.
No, I think what we were gonna do is, just see if there were things that the group wanted to focus on more than others, or what their targets were, so that we could just make sure that we could hit that. That's why I'm here, is basically just kind of a listen, take it in. Dave's on the call. He can, answer technical stuff right now.
Hey, Dave, sorry, I didn't mean to ignore you.
And we figured that, we knew that it's a short time between now and then, so it's really kind of being able to just prep our team to say, hey, they were interested more, they wanted you to focus on this part of the treatment process or this part of the site or something like that, so we could just get them, give them some of that direction. And then we tried to set some timeframes, and we're open, I'm speaking for Lauren, who's not here, but we're open to, if it needs to go, if it extends a little longer, or people need a little more time or whatever, we're available. I mean, they're here, so they can
What do you think?
get those questions.
You had it for 10, right?
Yeah, I think she booked from 10 to 2 with a lunch in between. If it goes shorter, it goes shorter, but we find that there's a lot of material to go through, and then we get, you'll get focused on one section that you didn't anticipate, and so we wanted to have some of that flexibility. I think we were gonna have lunch brought in, and Jackie, I don't know if did you and Lauren kind of figure what we're gonna be looking at for that?
I mentioned a few things to Lauren. I don't know where she got with it.
Okay. I'm presuming that there's no like
It's easy enough.
dietary restrictions or anything like that. I think we're gonna just
You
try
need to bring your own snacks if you have dietary restrictions.
to. So I think Lauren's gonna be, trying to set up something.
Okay.
She may reach out to, Hillary and just, it's the summer, so it's,
Yeah, it takes a while, but
yes. So,
Jackie,
yes,
I had a question, in terms of, I guess, what by numbers we should be getting at what point, because I see the 30% design specs for the collection system have dollar numbers next to them. And there's no dollar numbers next to the 3 or 4 pages on the facility side. So I'm just wondering, are we meant to be able to see some preliminary numbers for what different things there might cost? Then my second question is just to go back to the collection system, the 12 pump stations, since that's one of the biggest expenses. We had a bit of a discussion about that, a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about where they might be on those parcels, how much was below ground, how much was above ground. And I was wondering, you see the pumping stations 5 at unit cost 3 million. Are we meant to be able to get a breakdown on some of the bigger parts of that?
So, Steve, on the collection system, we could break it down a little further. And I think, Jeff could chime in here. You guys bid Mashpee, phase 2 not too long ago, right?
Nope.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be something very similar. We kind of took into account the location here in East Campbell, but on Outer Cape, and you look at Jeff and then Mashpee, there's a premium to be paid. But I don't know if you could break it down to that level of detail. It's just, they're gonna be bid as lump sum and they're gonna be one standalone project. So it'd be like, 5 pumping station, 1 contract, right? So we could get into the level of detail in terms of site work and, station components and so on and so forth. But if you feel like you want, there's no, we could certainly put that together.
I guess asking it a different way, are they all pretty much the same, or are 5 going to be 5 different levels of system?
No, they're pretty much functionality, they're probably gonna be the same. Obviously, some are gonna be bigger than others, but the concept probably remains the same.
and to answer your first question, we do have 60% cost estimates for both the treatment plant and the collection system.
Yeah, the treatment plant won't have many bid items because we typically do it as a big lump sum, so it's soup to nuts with some minimal items for mobilization and demobilization and some other little pieces, but usually it's one big thing so that we use the cost breakdown that we provide, and then when it goes to construction, the contractor is required to provide a schedule of values that is their breakdown, and then we evaluate it based on, do they give us realistic numbers, or do they say, well, the generator will cost a penny and then we want, $10 million to pave a driveway or something like that. That's what we use that opportunity for. So that's how our costs are usually developed versus the unit price that you would get for like collection systems are usually unit price, with the exception, as Zia said, of the pumping stations. I think you probably are doing those lump sums.
Yeah, lump sum.
And we would do the same, sort of like inside the fence. It's
So
just
one
easier.
contractor is gonna supply all this.
Well, you got.
Well, they'll have
One
some, so one of the things that we're gonna, between now and the next cost estimate that we develop, we'll actually take this cost estimate and we're gonna also arrange it based on filed sub bids, so that when we get the bid prices as well, we can say, okay, well, this is what they bid for electrical and this is what we thought it was gonna be. And the reality is, with filed sub bids, you're just at the mercy of the filed sub bid laws, and if you get one bidder, they can put down whatever they want. So it's unfortunate, but that's mass general law. We're kind of stuck with that. And then the contractors get to pick, technically, if they get 5 electrical sub bids and they're all over the place. They could still take the high one or the middle one. They could take anyone they want. They just gotta build it at their price and still wanna be the low bidder.
And it gets a little bit trickier when some of the contractors also do file sub bids,
Yeah.
like, some of them do like electrical, HVAC, and they restrict the bids, right? So, they could pick this number, but not that number. I guess this is where it gets a little bit funky, but,
And that's how they game their numbers as
right,
well.
exactly.
So the general contractors also do file subs,
Some of them do.
Some, yeah,
and that's legal.
Yep,
yeah, that's legal.
as long as they
That's
pick
that's the
themselves.
law in mass, not to mention here, this is gonna be like a pre-quals because of the value of the contract. So we're gonna have to pre-qualify as a file sub-bidders, right, because of the value exceeds like 10 million bucks, right, so. Now you have
That
to,
doesn't apply to this sub package, it applies to the total job as far as the pre-qualifications on this.
you gotta pre-qualify
All the
the file
contractors.
sub-bids first, and then you got the contractors. Yeah.
So I am on the board of the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, right? So we just had a board meeting last week. And we weren't discussing going out to bid or cost estimates or anything, but people did volunteer some good news, and that's that a couple of towns have gone out to bid recently, both coming in under budget and within the past couple of months, and Orleans is trending about 8% under their authorization, so they're very happy. I don't know if they're at the midpoint yet, but they've bid quite a few contracts, so.
So what we saw in Dennis, and maybe I don't know about Mashpee, but we saw a lot more competition this time
Oh, good.
as it was in the past, which is good news, obviously, right? So hopefully that will drive. We're not, I mean, obviously the plant is a specialty thing, right? So not every contractor does plant work. Where the collection system, you can see a lot of contractors are coming this way, which keeping the prices pretty reasonable here, so.
The plant is more like tanks.
Yeah, and it's like, again, we're sort of at the mercy of, like, the collection system doesn't have to do filed sub bids, so you tend to get tighter bids on that. And the filed sub bids can, if you really only get that one bidder, we get a range of bids on filed sub bids that can really throw your contract, so. Yeah, treatment plant's a little more, it's less forgiving than, or at least I've been seeing more of the collection system stuff, so I can't speak to, I know we just got all the bids for Mashpee Phase 2. So I know the collection system bids were all really competitive. I think the treatment plant was higher than we had anticipated, you know.
The original one or?
No, the Phase 2, the second
Right.
phase of that. I think I'm not sure where the Phase 1 treatment plant ended up. So.
So they didn't build phase 1.
They built Phase
You're gonna
1,
employ.
well. Mashpee made the decision as soon as they hadn't even started finishing Phase 1, or even they started building Phase 1, they were already ready to go to Phase 2. So they just kind of just said, okay, now we want to go to Phase 2 and we want to do all this other stuff. So they kind of made a decision to kind of rev it up and go. Yeah, I think it's just every town's gonna do whatever they do, so. I don't think that has anything to do with like what East Ham's gonna do.
I was just slightly encouraged by that.
Yeah, no, they've given a lot of competition, a lot of bids.
You're at 30%, not 60, right? For the collection.
For the collection, yeah, we feel like the next phase is probably we're gonna pick up quite a bit, pick up steam quite a bit here. Kind of waiting on the survey delayed us a little bit, utility mark out and all this stuff, but we do have the framework. Pretty much.
And we're gonna start digging in the wintertime like we have in the past.
I'm sorry?
Phasing in the.
Oh, the phasing. So we kind of rethinking this a little bit too, in part because of the, SRF cap, $50 million a year. And I think at the same time thinking, putting 5 contracts out there at the same time may be overwhelming. So we may be able to space it out a little bit, stagger the bids, kind of like give people some break. But we'll discuss that next time we meet here, so we have a good.
And it's 2 years to build a plant, is that right? Okay, I'm just
I
looking
think,
at,
Dave, I don't know, did I lose Dave? Oh, he's there.
It's still.
Lauren said
Dave.
3 years.
Yeah, I thought it was 3.
three, yeah.
Yeah, probably looking closer to 3. When we look at all just the tanks, lead time, pretty much any process equipment you're looking at.
I mean, in terms of the $50 million and how we allot that between the plant and the collection system.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, we did talk about maybe having a separate call from us with SRF to see how we could structure that. They may be willing to, depending on the timing, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna spend the 50 million, you get mobilization. Thinking about the plant, you get
Right.
some mobilization and a lot of concrete work that has to happen, a lot of earthwork. So, the pump stations or the collection system make it a little bit faster.
Right. But
That's
the
why.
real expensive part of it is, which is, I guess, like it's a peak dollar spend and when that occurs.
yeah, I think you kind of look at we have to develop a cash flow. So we'll develop one for the treatment plant. I imagine you'll develop one for the collection system and then you'll merge them together and then that'll really kind of give you a general idea of where you think things will fall out.
So, I mean, going back to the collection system, we could maybe rethink this by perhaps doing, we put 2 contracts out the first year and then maybe wait a little bit longer and we'll put 2 more, or whatever.
Because you can't, till the plant's built, you really.
Right, we don't,
Right,
it doesn't matter. If the collection system is done, it doesn't really.
And the good news, the pipe is always competitive, right? So you're always gonna get pretty much the same pricing. It doesn't really vary year to year. You're not subject to, or at least we don't know if you're subject to tariffs or anything like that, so.
Can you confirm for the state what you need under contract prior to June 30th of next year? Is it just the plant then, or do you have to have minimal amount of? collection
The
contracts?
plan is to submit 100% both for the collection system and the plant.
No, as far as going out to bid.
Going out to bid. No, I think we do a bid per contract, right? So they're gonna give us, if we have 5 sets for the collection system, and then 1 set for the plant, they give you an authorization to advertise an authorization award for each, right?
Yeah, I think what he's asking though is when you get close to the June 30, is the state expecting you to have bid all of your
Oh, I
contracts?
see.
As opposed to staggering it, I guess that gets to your comment of, you need to have a conversation with DEP
Right,
on the staggering of those
It
contracts.
would be hard to imagine how they would not approve staggering since they have set a limit of $50 million a year. Right?
Yeah,
So,
I agree, yeah.
I mean, they've authorized the whole amount, but they've said you need to stagger it over 3 years, basically. So,
The question I go through some of the costs is the salt shed. Is that part of the water job or does that have to be treated outside of the water job? Because it's a relocation.
Wasteland.
It's part of the wastewater.
It is part of.
Yeah, and we're
Reimbursable through the.
gonna do reimbursable because we actually physically have to move it in order to build what we need to
Okay.
build. Like, if the salt shed was in another part of the site that we really didn't need to touch, and the town said, well, while you're in here, why don't you knock that down and put it on there? Then that one, we probably wouldn't be able to say with a straight face, this is reimbursable, but in this case, we need that real estate, so we
Okay.
physically have to move it, and we can't just, I mean, if we pick that thing up, it'd probably fall over. It disintegrate as we go, so that's why we're building it and putting it under the project. It's similar like with the collection system. If there were water mains that were in your way, you could argue that you're moving them and get paid because you had to physically move them, or stormwater systems or things like that.
Yeah.
But if the town was just like, hey, could you run another water main down here? I mean, I know you're doing a different water project,
Yeah.
but as an example, or stormwater down this other road or something like that, where you weren't getting in there, that would be like an ineligible cost.
I know she had abatement in the specifications. Is that just part of the generic specs or are you anticipating abatement on the job site?
So we're gonna hire a sub to just check on some of the things. There's a couple weird things like those tanks that are down there, and
The soils.
we don't know how old the salt shed is, or who knows if they built something on the site that we have to move. We don't wanna run across lead paint or asbestos or something like that. So we have a standard spec in there right now. I don't think the water, because all their water mains are new, so you're not gonna have any like asbestos cement. We usually carry that. Again, because it's 60%, we have a few specs in there that are kind of placeholders, and we're making the determination of whether or not we'd.
So old
Mhm.
transite pipe and stuff like that, you want to cross, at least you got it covered then.
Yeah, so if there was something for whatever reason that they built their septic system at the DPW and they used AC pipe for that work. And we have to disturb it when we're doing all the trench to get the main in and all that,
Yeah.
we'd need an abatement, we need basically that section in the.
So you
spec.
will have a consultant coming in the next few months to verify the stuff.
Yeah, Dave, I don't know if did we get did Lauren talk more about, I know she was reaching out for looking at that, we wouldn't necessarily do it for the pipe, because that's just really a question of, do we know if we have AC pipe or not? And if we even think that we
I
do,
was
we'll
looking
keep
at the
that,
tanks, because I saw that note on the drawing, and then,
But
those are large tanks.
yeah,
Yeah, the easiest thing, like Fuss and O'Neill, usually they have a service, they come out and they do like an inventory, right?
Right.
They do screening for lead paint, any asbestos that's visible in the building, but to Jeff's point, if you have a pipe that's underground, you're not gonna know, right?
Right.
So you'll have a soil management plan and then asbestos abatement plan for underground piping. But for the inventory, maybe, you go up front, they say, okay, they give you a list of things that potentially could be contaminated that need special handling.
Yeah.
And that gets done, that gets included in part of their contract.
You had a construction service cost of $8.9 million. What is that? Is that owner's cost? Is that?
Oh.
Building,
say that, I was making a note.
construction services cost is
Oh.
8.9.
The construction phase services, right now, I think it's a percentage of the total construction cost of the treatment plant.
What's
So
that?
So that's basically our construction phase services, where we would have our resident project representatives, our shop drawing reviews, RFIs, change orders, field orders, project meetings, all the things that we would do. Obviously, you're gonna have the OPM that would be overseeing and kind of managing, and they review the, change orders as well and things like that. But, we're taking all the information, RFIs from the contractor, responding to those field orders, work change directives, all that development,
So it's basically
test-
the engineering costs.
yeah, it's basically our construction engineering costs, and it includes, testing services for so we carry the concrete, slump and, when they come out and test all the trucks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so one thing on that, we'll get into a little bit deeper, but Mass state code does not allow the design engineer and or the contractor to do a concrete testing. You could do site work and earthwork testing, but the concrete falls on the owner because they just want an impartial party. Like, usually we carry like an allowance for $30,000 to kind of have concrete and then steel testing. Whereas this just came up in the 10th edition of the building code. Somebody brought up to my attention the other day, but
So we can't hire a sub.
you can't hire the sub, it has to be by the owner.
So the OPM does, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that, in the past, we've done that.
Actually, nobody picked up on it, and nobody cared unless it became an issue, right?
Well, I think we
yeah,
had
we-
to do it for town hall. We had to do
True,
it for town
true.
hall.
We usually never let the contractor do it for that very reason, but I don't know why the design engine, we don't, I guess from our perspective, we work for the town and we're here to protect the town's interests as much
Right.
as
Yes,
the OPM is,
So that
so.
would include the owner's builder's risk insurance and everything.
So the
It's all-
builder's risk is carried by the contractor, so the contractors,
Contractor carries it.
they carry all their insurance and, because we're not doing any of the construction, we're just basically observing and reporting and documenting, that's what our role is in
And
construction phase services.
approving, recommending them.
Yeah, so we'll recommend things, and so, we also will have to, the reason that, we carry the cost to do a lot of that observation work and basically hire our own RPRs and things like that is because we have to then certify that the facility was built in accordance with the requirements for the state. So we have to document that for both the state and also I think the building department has
Local
their,
department,
has their own like building code, I forget what the
Construction.
construction control doc, yeah, that one. So,
You're carrying a 20% contingency right now. How would you break that up into what's left in design is allocated towards that? How much of that is the owner's contingency for the construction? How much of that is project contingency? And do you carry a bid contingency also? Or how do you break that up?
so right now, I believe when we did this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, I think we just carried the single 20% contingency based on a 60% design.
Correct.
And then when we go to 90% submit to SRF, we carry a straight 10% contingency, which is what's allowed by DEP. And that's basically to cover unforeseen conditions during construction for any number of things. So unforeseen conditions are things that you decide that you want to make a change somewhere, or there's a, God forbid, a conflict or something else that we're going back and forth on with the contractor with regards to addressing something that you would have paid for had it been in the design, but it was not in the design, so that's why they give you the contingency. Now, they force you after bids typically to reduce that to 5%. So when you actually go and sign up your loan, you'll have your cost estimate you'll have your bids, you'll have your engineering services will already have been agreed to, us and them and everybody else. And then you'll have a 5% contingency on that part of the project. They're gonna actually lump it with, so depending on how it works with the other contracts, that's where it gets like, I'm only talking about the treatment plant because I'm just hyper focused on that, but it does get more complicated because they treat it as one contingency for the loan, and then they spread it out over the various different contracts. So it would be the overall project would carry a 5%. But we would typically focus it based on what we do for construction. Now, if we found that for some reason there was an issue that we felt that the town had appropriated plenty of money, and there was a change that we wanted to make that happened very close to bidding, or as we were doing an addenda, we made a change or something like that. We have in the past, although I don't know if DEP's is friendly, forgiving as they were in the past, but we were able to ask them and say, hey, we had this condition, we'd like to increase our contingency from 5% to 7.5% to carry this extra piece that we know, like we had a utility conflict where the gas company had put a gas main right where we wanted to do work, and we knew that we were gonna have to change all our utilities in this road. And we said, hey, this is a big change, it's a cost, we don't know what this impact is, but we'd like to inflate our contingency now so that we could work through that. And they were able to do that because the town had appropriated sufficient funds. It all comes down to how much you've appropriated. If you've got, if your appropriation's big enough and the bids and everything else falls underneath that, they'll work with you. What they don't do is if your appropriation was, right at all that money, they're not gonna give you extra contingency without having the town have some funds to back it up.
Yeah, no, good summary. Add a little bit to that, which is you could move money within the project. And then you could move, let's just say you come across more police details than you anticipated, so you can move some from contingency to cover police detail. You could move things around in between, but they less likely now to give you an increase in your to revise your cost estimate or your PRA, whatever, they're less likely to give you that. So in the past, it was like, okay, automatic bidding stuff.
In summary, 10% of the 20 is designed, 5% is bid, and then the rest is the construction contingency. That's what you just said, I think.
Of this 20%?
Yeah.
So this 20%, yes, we're gonna dwindle the 20% down,
Right.
and we're gonna dwindle it down to 10. Right up until right before bidding. So we're gonna carry 10% contingency right through all our final cost estimates, right up to when you bid. And then we drop that again and basically lose 5% on the project once we have the bids in.
Right.
Cause they're presuming that they have a lot of faith in us that our cost estimates are right in within 5%. And so if our bids are 5% higher, then they're taking that off of that 10% contingency, and then they're carrying a 5% contingency throughout the project. That's the way I rationalize how they look at it.
Is the site balanced? Are we importing materials or exporting?
Dave, do we know, has Taylor, worked through the quantities yet? I know he was working on that, with the
Yeah, I
excavation.
have not. If he has done them, I have not seen them yet. So I know that we are working on that, so.
Must know, so.
I think it was discussed at some point, they were looking to kind of confirm it, but they got a big hole and then you got some excavation coming out of foundation and the recharge beds, they probably supposed to fill some of that hole, and then the height of the building got changed a little bit, so.
Usually at this point, you know what the export or import is. My point being is, for example, sightlines. Do you have material to waste where you wanna change some of the exterior berms on the job at this point? Or you're not there yet, you don't know.
I don't.
No, so I guess I would answer, I believe we have the number. I just don't know it off the top of my head. The guy that does the site civil
Alright.
isn't on our call, so
Yeah.
I put a note here so that we will make sure that we talk about that for the meeting, for the workshop.
Okay,
You know, obviously, there is gonna be some materials that are gonna have to come out, just because we're not gonna be able to use it for whatever reason, like, we're not gonna backfill with, you know, cruddy topsoil or
Right.
something like that, you know, there are some of those kinds of things, but as he had said, we're gonna try to take as much of the usable materials to use as fill around and sort of basically that, where we're creating that stormwater basin, but we don't wanna put materials that are also gonna clog any of our, recharge or stormwater, recharge areas.
The other thing is, Steve, in the past, what makes more sense, obviously it's all sand here, it's
Right.
probably not gonna vary much, right? So the ideal case scenario, if you have a few thousand yards left over that you need to get rid of, sometimes the town takes it. Especially if you have a location nearby, you could accommodate that fill, that's
Yeah, we
probably the
do.
easiest
We
way.
have seen.
Yeah.
So if the town, so one of the things that we probably should make sure is in the spec is, you know, often when we have a big site project, we discuss with the town two things. A, do you want to, I don't know how good your topsoil is in the area where it's kind of wooded and things like that. Do you want them to like screen and take that, or do you want them just to haul that? You know, if they can't use it, then they can haul it off and get rid of it. But I presume that you want to own the sand. And you may want to use that for other areas where you might need some restoration, but you don't necessarily need you know, it probably as nice as your sand pit sand, but it might be pretty good depending on just what part of the site we're taking it from.
Right.
You know, because some of it's been disturbed for a while, so there is going to be some fill and other materials that you could probably use somewhere, but so we can make provisions for that in the documents that, the only problem, and that's where the cut fills are important. If you decide that you want to own it and we end up having too much, then we end up paying to have it disposed of or having it hauled off. Or that there be a point where you need to be able to provide the equipment to get it to wherever you want to stockpile it off the site, because the contractor is going to want to be able to obviously use as much of that site as possible, and DPW is gonna need to be able to work as well, so
my
that's the.
experience is probably not to put limitations on a site contractor. Let him figure out where to dispose of it, because he usually knows the cheapest spots and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, usually they carry that, if you make it explicitly known in the specification, you're gonna have to own it.
Right.
They probably figured out in their bid somewhere, right?
Right.
That's the cost, like I had a job in Hyannis and the material was hauled from Hyannis to Harwich. And ends up being somewhere around $12 a cubic yard, they can offsite to like maybe 4,000 cubic yards.
So I just asked our site civil engineer here, and he did say that what he states here is that we will have a large amount of cut material to stockpile or haul off-site, store elsewhere. So they coordinate with the town to coordinate with the town if they have space available for stockpiling of reusable materials, or if we need to find another area on site. And I think, I believe at one time, I think that the water tower site may have been mentioned as an area to store stockpile materials.
Mhm.
How much, Dave, what's the volume of this roughly?
I just asked him if he gave me an order of magnitude. So,
We can have that number for the work, we'll have the
Yeah.
numbers for the workshop.
Do you have to take the soil underneath the recharge beds down to a certain level? And then replace with washed gravel or anything? No.
Nope, so our goal is to strip off the top material, dig down the 1 to 3 feet, depending on how hot, how deep we're going to get to this, basically the sea layer, the nice sandy recharge material, and that stuff is prime stuff, like you don't want to be paying to bring in sand now, so.
Specialty sands or anything like
No,
that?
so we want to just use this because we showed that it perks and it perks fast, and I mean, you guys know it's Eastham, it's pretty good sand,
Yeah.
so you don't want to pay to we don't want to pay to import any of that stuff. So really what we're trying to do is get rid of all that, the top garbage, some of the fill. The one place we're not too sure about is there is more fill over on the
easternmost.
the eastern side, yeah, along the old orchard. So there may be the need for us to have the contractor, after they've kind of scraped some of the sand bed area, if we know that we could harvest some of that material and use it over in the other location and just, make sure that it meets the sieve requirements and it doesn't have a whole lot of fines in it, then we could use that as basically bed material over there if we feel that we have to over excavate to get rid of some of the fill. It just depends on what DEP allows us to do with regards to some of the fill.
And I think that, Jeff, that's a perfect example of what, the contingency would end up being used for during construction. So Taylor did say that he's looking on the order of 9,000 cubic yards of fill or material to be exported offsite.
Oh, go one second.
That line seemed a little low to me, and not picking it apart too much, but site earthwork for 117 is all that. The grading around the retention pond, basically the whole site.
Give me a minute here to bring up the cost estimate. So there's the site work. If you're looking at the 60% cost estimate for the treatment plant, we broke out some of the site work for using the kind of the beds and the general site work, and then we had separate line items for like the site work associated with the treatment building and the operations building were under those headings. So.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, the topographical plan. Of course, one of them was, I think, because the lines were 1 foot apart in elevation, so there's a lot of lines. Just seemed like a lot of machine work. Oh, and so the OPM fee on these is not in either of these at this point.
No, so basically our contract with the town takes us through design of the collection system and the OPM during the design phase. And I'm sure GHD had a number now, a placeholder like Jeff was mentioning. It was at 8.9. This is anticipated, but construction phase services will have the same number, not the same number, similar when we do the collection system. And then our involvement in the plant would be limited. So we participate in meetings, we review pay requisitions, change orders, potential claims, all of that stuff during construction, so.
But if GHD is handling change orders, are you reviewing them too? Is this a?
Yeah, I mean, if there is a claim here from the contractor, and then you kind of want the OPM is required, obviously, during this phase of the work between design and construction, but if there is a claim and kind of trying to figure out who's, how to resolve that issue, resolve conflicts.
It's your question going back, so I'm trying to go back to where we were before, this general conditions number, that is for the contractor and not for you guys.
Yeah,
Is that true?
correct. In our cost estimate, yes. So I think there's like
So
a,
that there's not, that's not, those numbers, that number is not included in your construction services cost.
no, we keep the engineering number separate. So when we,
And the O and P is for the contractor, so.
yep,
So you have O and P.
yeah, it's a build, ours would all,
I know.
oh, sorry.
Oh, for us?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, I don't think we have a number, Jackie, right? Roughly.
No, I guess where I'm going, is, you know, I look at these two numbers, these two sets of numbers, my first question is, what's not in these numbers?
What's not in there, yeah.
Right.
So,
Let's just kind of,
yeah,
you know, tell me what it is, but what
is not in
what the
there?
number is, but what isn't in there.
so I could say the OPM fee for the plant, it's not included.
Or
Unless-
the collection system.
No, collection, no, we have not included that.
But for 60%, you think you will start
Yeah,
including
yeah.
that?
Well, I
but you
guess
don't
the
need
question-
but you also don't need an OPM for the collection system.
Correct, you don't need no, yeah, we're talking about maybe, Peter, you're talking about the construction phase during for the collection system.
Yeah.
Oversight. Yeah, we don't have, I think it was included in the overall number that went to part of the 170. It
Right,
exactly was
but
like,
not in
not in here, right?
80 or whatever.
At what point then, I guess, will we be presented with a total number, which would be everybody's design costs, everybody's construction, certain costs, owner's cost, land acquisition, so that we can compare it to the 170 to see if we're good or not good.
Yeah, you should be getting a number at 60%.
So we'll talk about next week, I mean.
Yeah, for us, I think we have a rough number here, Jackie, right? We have a,
Mhm.
yeah.
And we'll have a lot of that part of the SRF submission in October as well. But then I think like Steve's saying too, part of what I'll be tracking in the spreadsheet is the miscellaneous items like land acquisitions, things like that, but.
So, can I ask another question? So I'm trying to get a cost on the covers for the SBR, so I'm trying to break that number out, and the best I can do, I get 1.3 million, or so, that number right, or? Maybe it's three, it's actually 3 million. is what I get.
1 point.
But what I don't know is if the the pre-equalization is necessary, how separate are those two items, the SBR versus the
Pre-equalization.
yeah.
So for the pre-equalization, so just kind of backing up. So we're at full build out, we're going to have a 3 basin SBR system. Initially, we're putting in the mechanical equipment in 2 of the SBR basins, and we are going to be using the 3rd basin as a pre-equalization basin. Okay. So, you know, it's going to be part of the whole structure. So we're going to be putting covers on the 2 SBR basins and the 1 pre-equalization basin, and then we will be having an odor control system for those. So I had the line item for the covers for the pre-EQ and the SBR. I had those at about 1.5 million.
When you put the covers on those tanks, did that come in confined space also?
Yes.
Yes.
It does, yes, but there's also like, it doesn't, I'm sorry, I was thinking the ratings. I think we're also providing odor control, so we're pulling air off of there, so the space may have a different rate, may not be full explosion proof. I can't remember, it might be class 1, div 2.
Class 1, div 2
Yeah,
rated.
So as long as you have the 12
yeah,
exchanges per hour or something, yeah.
If you can get that many.
but the tank would be confined space, covered or not covered, because you can't-
Limited
there's
egress,
no-
yeah, not.
There's no ladders into there. I mean, if you're in the bottom of that hole,
Fall in.
yeah.
But
So-
the covers are 1.4 million in this number, and the odor control is 1.3. Am I right on that?
Correct.
So that comes up
Yeah,
close to 3 mil.
we need the odor control.
The odor control,
For
anyway.
for which one?
for the rest of the plant.
So the odor control is,
So is this odor control? But this says for SBR and pre-EQ, not for the plant.
Okay.
so Dave,
It should
yeah,
restrict
you want to
it to-
explain the odor control pieces as well?
Yes.
'Cause-
So the odor control, we are absolutely controlling the headworks and the sludge holding tank.
Right.
So that is going to be in the base bid. And the covers for the SBR, the pre-EQ, and the odor control for the SBR and pre-EQ are being incorporated as add alternate number 1.
Excellent.
And I think that was kind of what we had. Sorry, I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay.
But I think the question is, does the odor control changes in size when you do the add alternate,
Right.
the bid alternate? So I think what they're
So-
getting at is the cost for our odor control and our cost estimate. Is that full build out with serving everything, or is that just the sludge and headworks, and then there's another cost that would go into the bid alts for the SBR?
So using the bid alternate approach, we will have one system that is serving the headworks and the sludge holding tanks. And then we will have a separate system which will serve the SBR and the pre-EQ. And that gives us a nice clean delineation as far as making add alternates. That as it's an entirely separate structure, so that can be easily pulled out if we determine that is necessary for the funding of the project.
Are you adding structural height at all to the tanks because of the covers, or is it literally a cover?
No, it's just.
The covers are going to be largely flat, so they're not going to be like sticking up too much above the top of the tanks. We will have some penthouses, a little bit kind of raised hatches to be able to cover some of the equipment where it's necessary, but that's going to be close to the building, so really won't be visible from the the edge of the property. So
Yeah, you're not we're not building it so that you'd like walk into a room. Do you know what I mean? And you could walk around the tanks inside the covers. The covers are gonna be there, and you're just on the tanks themselves. So you just, if you need to get access to something, you're opening up a cover. If that's what you were getting at with your question.
Well, I was just thinking I don't know, the water levels, you got floating equipment, does that need any headroom and that kind of stuff? It doesn't, okay.
that's
Well,
what I was mentioning about for the kind of the penthouse. Really, the only place where I need to have that is over the decanter. The tank height is high enough that we're clearing the mixer, the floating mixer. We have enough headroom in there for it to operate.
Division 17 where is that distributed in your cost and instrumentation controls? There's no line item for it that I could see. I don't know if it's thrown in with the electrical or if it's spread out. How you handle that?
It's.
We did have a line item on there for automation on that. That was listed at 203,000, and that was what our instrumentation group had come up with. I think that's a little light. I want them to sharpen their pencil on that, get me a better price. So that I guess to answer your question, on the summary sheet, we had a line item at the very bottom, right above contractors overhead and profit of automation. And then the electrical is spread out, distributed amongst the various process areas there.
I would agree that would be seems like a light number, so.
Yeah.
The covers on the sludge holding tanks are required, right? They're not optional.
Correct. They're in the base bid.
Yeah, I mean, we're requiring them. They're not technically required, but we like to do it because that's usually an odor.
That's where you.
That's headworks and sludge are the two odor producers, so that's where we want to have that stuff. You technically could do it with, I mean, not in Eastham, but anywhere else on the planet, you technically could build them, I believe, you aren't required to put a cover on them, but everybody covers them just because they generate odors.
There's no requirement in TR 16, to my knowledge, Jeff, that says thou shalt odor control wastewater treatment plants.
Yeah.
have you seen on SBRs being covered?
I worked for the town of Kingston for 2 years. So those two, that's the only SBR that I physically worked at, but I've seen the Mass Maritimes. So that's,
Which ones are covered? Mass Maritime?
no, well, Mass Maritime's inside a building. It's a small
Oh, okay.
treatment plant. The town of Kingston's, their SBRs are uncovered. But their headworks is a separate building with their own odor control. So, and then sludge holding tank is actually in the ground, so it's got a covered tank on it, so.
And how is that interested? Do they smell?
When the plant's running right, to me, it's just an earthy smell. It smells almost like leaves and stuff decomposing. But when it's not running right, luckily it's next to the transfer station.
I
So,
mean, Orleans, their SBRs aren't covered, Falmouth's SBRs aren't covered. I mean, it's
Well,
not, it's secondary.
The water was stagnant.
It's that stale leaf.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect description of it.
my perception is, as an operator, I'd prefer them to be uncovered because I like to see what the process is doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I spend hours when I was in Kingston just watching it go up and down and,
Mhm.
playing with the hose a little bit just to.
Yeah.
To see things, but, as they're covered, as long as there's inspection ports that we can get to. It's fine.
These covers aren't retractable covers. They're just.
No, it's not, so, I mean, we would prefer. If we had our druthers, we would keep the SBRs uncovered, because it's cheaper and it allows the operators easier access, and we don't have to worry about, like, if you had to. Do some repairs, you're not taking the whole thing apart, yeah, they're not retractable, it's not like, it's not like.
It's like a.
Push the button.
It's not like the football, it's not like, it's not like where the Cowboys play and they can retract.
Yeah. Cover that just goes
We
back.
could probably
Yeah,
build that.
no, yeah, yeah.
So, but when when we went to Orleans, it was stagnant. There was no movement of the water whatsoever, so.
That's right.
So they were in
There
the
is-
decant mode at that point.
Yeah.
They were in the decant mode, letting everything
Right.
settle out, and they're taking the
Yeah.
clear water out.
So, but when it is active, is that when you get that leaf smell?
You get a,
We smell nothing.
when you get the first 2 minutes of when the air kicks on, you'll get that smell, and then after that, it kind of just dissipates. I mean, you'll get a whiff of it here and there, but it's not,
When it's active.
when it first starts to activate, you'll get that smell, but it's not.
Yeah, Fred, when I went the.
Yeah, it's not a terrible
did that
smell.
Video in Orleans, he went up in the SBRs when they activated it.
It did. It
Purposely-
was
Went there
active.
purposely when they were gonna do it.
Yeah,
I knew when they were gonna do it.
Oh, yeah, when Rich did his video,
And I
right?
took a video of it, so you can see what it looks like, a little bit of bubbling, and I was right there when it started.
And it was a different color.
Literally took 45 seconds.
Yeah.
It was very dark brown.
So it's when it
It's
doesn't,
not like Chatham, never looked brown to me.
it's,
Well, when it flows in it was clear. We saw it in the tanks. It was dark, right?
so when it's getting aerated, that's the fact that it's getting oxygen, so it's not creating all that stuff that it's your septic tank, it's the stuff that's, anoxic, anaerobic, that stuff that's not getting the oxygen, that's when you're getting,
Smell.
that odor, that's why your raw wastewater, coming into the headworks, and then the sludge, it's the stuff you're taking off is gonna be more of your odor producers, the fact that your secondary process is, your bugs are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you are getting that,
Yeah, happy bugs, you
yeah.
wanna keep them happy.
So Jeff, just to summarize a few things for next week,
Yep.
and talking to a couple of these guys and some of the questions today. If you can probably be prepared to some extent to indicate to the items that there might be some alternative. Right, so the salt shed, we picked a certain salt shed because it had a certain look and construction material type of thing.
Okay.
What were things that were decision points that we could look at? Not necessarily have to delve into them in much detail, but I think the committee would like to know, where are some points that we can make some decisions if we had to.
Okay,
So
so some like
the
other,
salt
yeah,
shed,
yeah,
With,
salt shed, okay.
value, perspective,
right,
or cost perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the covers is,
Right,
that's a very easy
top of the
one.
list.
We had, we could talk about the salt shed. I know Dave, you're obviously taking notes too, I assume, on come up with some discussion about the whole covers issue. I mean, the reality is you got a building that's actually between, no one's gonna be able to, unless you're physically standing on top of there, you're never gonna see the water in the SBR.
well, that's,
The design.
The
very-
But there are the concerns about the odors from sludge and from the headworks, and so we would
Yeah.
always put, we'd always have odor
We're not
control.
arguing, I don't think.
So,
I guess my
That's a-
question on that is, with a bid alt for odor control, do you need the covers to have odor control at the SBRs, or could you still suck out some of the musty smell without capturing it underneath the cover?
How would you?
oh, no, you wouldn't be able to. You'd need really tall walls or something like that to try to create some kind of, I don't know. You have a fan or, yeah, I'm not sure how you would do that on. The SBRs, like creating some kind of positive draw without having
So
a
they go
cover, so,
together,
yeah, so they're,
all that money would,
So, but from an operator perspective, right, if you have, covers on SPRs, is there like any limitations in terms of removing things, weight and?
It's all of that. It's
All of
all,
that,
you
right?
change the whole concept of working on an SBR with a cover changes. Because now you're building staging to get out there, you're harnessed in, it's, you know, if something goes wrong, you have to clean out the tank, it's, now you're talking serious confined space, it's. You know, sometimes certain ones you'd have to get the fire department involved with, because you want them on standby if something does happen.
Mhm.
So it does change your
yeah.
whole perspective of maintenance.
I
And
don't
again,
know.
as an operator, I like to see it. I'm a, you know, God, I hate to say that, I'm gonna say this, I'm an old school guy. I'd like to see what I'm, you know, the younger guys, they don't mind, they can look at the computer and say, oh, everything's fine, I'm a touchy feely type of a person, so.
I mean, I think clearly if they don't move and you're making hatches in them to see, then that's a different animal.
Well,
Yeah.
the other thing too, though, if you're putting hatches on there, then you have to have a walkway that's
Yeah,
confined space certified, so that way we can tie off on too, also.
Like a catwalk in between them?
Correct.
Yeah, yes,
Can't just walk on the covers.
right. I mean, as is, you know, they, I don't know, I forget what there's a 40 feet by whatever, I mean, there's a big span,
Yeah.
right? So now you have to have structural components in place to be able to support these things, right?
Put all those things up,
Yeah.
snow load and.
Yeah, right.
So as far as the covers that we are looking at, we're looking at a I think it was the Enduro fiberglass was the base of the design that I was looking at. And the Enduro fiberglass covers that I've done, they are load carrying, have a load capacity that you can walk on the cover. So
So that span,
6 inch.
well, like 50 feet or something.
40 something.
yeah, it's a,
It's pretty rugged.
Did, you meet Jim Waldron, by the way?
Met him early.
That's then segue into the next topic.
Jim, what was your last name?
Walden, WALDRON.
Thank you.
Well, just piggyback on what you said though, to make sure we're clear that they're gonna be looking at if there are any other opportunities that we could save cost. We want to know what they are.
Just to know what the specs and the pricing includes, things that there's some discretion that you guys might want to evaluate.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're at 60%, we get much further and there's no turning back, so now would be the time to
No, we,
try to point out those.
yeah, and the way we're right now, that's why we're building some of them as bid alternates, so that you have some of that flexibility, so you could make some of those choices as well when you get the cost. But one of the things that we will need input and direction on is order of preference.
Yep.
So Massachusetts requires us to do it in order. So if we all of a sudden put covers last and have a whole bunch of other things, but we really want to do the covers, but none of the other stuff, we have to do everything else before we can even get to
Ran
the
into
covers.
this on the high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
it is a weird rule.
yeah.
It's a few weird rules. File
You know,
file
it should be
substance right up there.
alternates, right?
So not to get into the weeds on this, Dave and Jeff, but let's just say, the covers as bid alternates, right? Because they kind of covers HVAC and then
Yep.
also structural could be all intertwined into one thing, right? So if you delete one, that means your HVAC is going to change, your structural is going to change, and some other components probably will have to change, right? So I'm not sure, you know,
even if you do it as a bid alternate, how would you?
So the way we're looking at it right now is, as Dave said, we're grouping the covers with the odor control and
Right.
and whatever, we're gonna design the tanks as if they could support covers regardless, in terms of like, we're not really changing, it's not, the structural design of the tanks isn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, isn't really gonna change covers, no covers. What it really comes
Correct.
down to is once we put covers on there, then there are other things that we would need to do, like the odor control. And that's why Dave was talking about having it as a separate system, so that we know that we're adding them or subtracting them as a unit. We're not going, okay, the covers are one item and then the odor control is another. We'll do anything that's related to adding the covers and supporting that with the odor control would be together. But there may be some other items that, I mean, we could make I'm not suggesting this, but we could make the salt shed an alternate, which means the town decides that you don't want to do it under this project and have it funded under SRF. And you're already gonna build one somewhere else, or you've already elected to build one somewhere else or something like that, you could do that, or we could put it in there to see what the cost is.
Well,
So,
I mean, I appreciate, I really do, Dave, the work that goes into making these alternates, and especially the way you've designed that where it is discrete from everything else, so it really is a true alternate. Because I think, if push comes to shove and the project is coming in over budget when we go out to bid, then it's very easy to take those alternates and ask town meeting, do you want this or not? If you don't want it, then we'll take it out.
Do you go for
If you
that?
want it, we need more money, it's that simple.
Do you look at alternates as add alternates or deduct alternates?
you can do both.
I know, but what's the philosophy of your company?
So, I think, to be honest, it actually depends on, it depends on what it is. So I think, Dave, in this one, we're looking at as an add alternate, correct? So we're adding the covers.
Correct.
Adding the odor control and doing it that way, cause you're kind of like, it's like a hat, I'm looking at it like that way. If it was something that was more, trying to think of what would be a good example of where we would do a deduct alternate.
Well, I guess, Jeff, I think, Jeff, I think we discussed the possibility of doing, the odor control as a add alternate or as a deduct alternate. And honestly, I think we could go either way with it. The question, I guess, gets into the philosophy of bidding, and if we do it as a add alternate, are we going to get a better base bid price versus if we get it as a deduct alternate, are we going to end up with a higher base bid but a lower deduct cost? So there's always that question that comes into play.
Dude, if we make that decision before you go to bid, that's a non-issue, right?
Well, we'll have to make that decision before we go to bid, because I'll need to know how to structure my bid documents.
Yeah, it comes in like the design drawings, it's,
Yeah.
it gets into, how we show it, or how do we show that as it just comes down to how we actually show it graphically on the plans and in the text, in the specification, so it's clear, the contractor knows what's in and what's out of any one of those particular items. So
Yeah,
I guess
Jeff,
I've kind of danced around your question.
I don't have an answer. I don't know.
We've done both, and that's the thing. That's why I can't really answer. Like, more often than not, I think of this as more like an add alternate. Like, we want this, and we're not sure we want the covers, but if the cover price came in good and it was something that just seemed right, I would do that as, like, I guess it comes down to, if the town was of the opinion, we agree that we like having the cost down a little bit, and we don't want to go with covers. We're gonna do it without covers first, but we'll just see what the price is, and if it's just too good to pass up, we'll do it. Whereas I would do it as a deduct alternate if the town was like, no, we're gonna cover those SBRs no matter what.
I agree.
They will be in your design.
Yeah.
And then we would put an alternate that says, we're gonna delete
But
this
those up.
if it's just so, if the cost of our bid is so high
Pressure
that we wanna,
on the cost on the bid.
that we wanna remove it. That's, I guess that's the way I would look at like the discussion on the cover. So really, I hate to push it back on the
No.
town, but I think it's some of it's the town's decision.
I agree with what you're saying though, as far as it makes sense to do it that way, so.
Yeah, I can see why there's two
Yeah.
different ways, two different approaches.
Different question, going from 30% to 60% documents, did the site views change at all? Building height, building size? Is there any information that town residents should have at this point that different from what they saw a month and a half ago?
We did bump the roof height on part of the treatment building by 2 to 3 feet over about a third of it. I don't remember if the most recent renderings that you guys used reflected that or not.
They did, Dave.
Okay, they did.
Yeah, we had those for town meeting and things.
Okay, excellent. I just, my thought too, Jeff, you know, the other thought about add alternate versus deduct alternate would be, I don't know if there is a perception, if we had the odor control as a deduct alternate as opposed to an add alternate, would that possibly be more well received by the general public?
I don't know. I can think about that.
So trying to phrase this nicely, but, what, why, are we at the point where we could say forget about the covers?
How would we be at that point?
Because I hear no reasons why they're a good idea. None. And they cost $2 million.
3, don't say 2, 3.
Right.
Well, I think the public has
Just voted for this.
I guess, the
Just voted, like,
The-
I mean, 5 minutes ago, Peter. It's not like we can say, we're going out to bid, it's going to come in at $5 million or $3 million, or the project is over budget and we have to make choices. At that point, absolutely. But
No,
now,
why? Do you think what the public voted on was this level of detail?
No,
That they
I
knew
don't
there were
think so.
covers?
they
They were
knew
gonna
they were
cost-
covered. It was important that they were covered and they were shown as
Who?
covered.
Oh,
Peter, it was shown in the drawings that were presented.
oh,
I was at the meeting.
yeah.
I think it's important to the people you talk to, and we understand that you've made that choice. But, you know, as we've looked at this whole situation, it looks like it's not a good idea to do it. From a
Then
financial
we can
perspective.
take it out later.
but
But
there's,
see, if you do that, I think it mucks up the way the bidding goes.
no, you
No.
could, if you add it as, if you keep it, if you take the approach that we just had the discussion about, whether, how the perception goes, but we do it that, we've also, I think Jackie said to the town that, hey, you know, if the costs are high or whatever, the covers might go away. So if we make them an add
We are
alternate,
gonna-
if we made them an add alternate, then they're not in the base bid. And you guys pretty much can go in going, you know, we're probably not gonna build those covers, cause you've got your base bid set up that way. Maybe you squeeze a couple other add alternates or deduct alternates above that or whatever that you know that you're a little more, yeah, you could go either way on, but if you get some good prices, you'll build those in.
I think it's
But
worth,
then you
I
can,
think it's worth knowing what it's gonna be, you know,
Okay.
and, you know, we might, you know, we don't need to make the choice
We
today,
don't
so
need
why
to.
would we make it today? We just-
And we would
Get that.
be, you know,
It would be perceived as deception if we made it to that.
and you
Really,
could,
Well,
honestly.
the other point, not just the
I
cost
would
of
feel-
what the estimate is, that's why we got Jim here, is, you know, we have this contract with Whitewater that's gonna look at the 60% design from an operational standpoint. And so I'm presuming, you know, Jim, if you wanna speak up to that.
I have started looking at it, my, Jared and Eric, have also started, we haven't gone through everything, there was just a lot of information that we
Yes.
just got.
But I would imagine the covers are probably operationally a thing for you.
Something.
I mean, like, again, it's a personal preference, I know operators that don't mind it, me, like I said, I've learned hands-on, that's how I learned how to do my operational back in my days. So I don't like them because I can't see what's going on in the tank. That's just my preference. The way that I would say it, as you're my clients, I would say, here goes your Cadillac. Can you afford a Cadillac?
Mhm.
If you tell me no, all right, then we're gonna look at a Buick. Can you afford a Buick? No, then we're gonna go to a Chevy. What, it's just a package. What do you wanna do? So I would go for the full gusto on everything and then let the people speak and, hey, if we cut this out, it's gonna save you this much. That's.
At least with the alternate, you'd have a price.
Yes,
Right.
And you'd have it separate from everything else, so you'd know exactly how much those covers were gonna cost you. And if they cost, if they say the covers are gonna cost you $10 million or whatever, you'd be like, oh, see, that's why we didn't wanna do that. We could drop it out.
And where are we gonna be in this project next time meeting, you know?
well, we'll either be awesome and we won't even talk
No,
about
that's
it, or we'll be asking for more money.
No, but we'll know a lot more.
Yes, we
then.
will.
Everyone's a bidding.
But we'll be in a place where we can make that offer to the town meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah, you'll have
This is what it is.
The bidding is in the spring, right?
Yes,
Yes.
so we gotta get through, we'll do I
The
think,
winter.
yeah, in the winter, we'll do the,
It's really, we
Pre-qual-
have time.
Calls, yeah.
We're
Zones.
just handicap people.
I know you see it as frivolous, but whether it was a mistake or not, we went into town meeting with drawings of covered buildings and we specifically stated that. So if we're gonna change that, I need to have a reason that's bigger than, we really don't think it smells. So I think I just need more data and I need to go back and revisit that, and I would prefer to revisit it. It'd probably be my last act.
You made that decision before.
I prefer to revisit it by saying, look, we cannot afford to do this in the $170 million appropriation. If it's important to somebody, they can petition it as a petitioned article, or we can put it on town meeting and they can decide and everyone can. But if we absolutely can't afford it because we're off by like 20 million, then that's a different.
Could you also say, we've learned a lot since the original sketches and we don't think it's a good use of your money?
No, I never thought that we needed covers, Peter. Personally. I've been at several of these tanks and I've never smelled anything other than rotten leaves, which I smell in my yard every October, so it's not a big deal.
How did whoever persuade you, or powers that be, to design, incorporate covers?
So
We sat around, we asked if we could have them covered or shown as covered. And the answer was yes, and so it didn't, since we were changing the design anyway, it didn't really. I didn't think it was gonna be a big deal just to ask for it.
But people ask,
Obviously it is to you.
If we knew what the vote was gonna be ahead of time, we're to put them in there.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, you guys didn't think it was gonna pass, so
Well,
we're in a
yeah,
better
lots of
place
that.
than you thought we were gonna be
Point
in.
taken.
If we're gonna fight.
Debbie Downers.
yeah, I think.
You're Debbie Downers, right?
From a small group of people.
People started to talk
We're all in
about
the
it,
fight.
and it's kind of.
Yes,
I mean, have you posted pictures of like other SBRs or anything?
Oh, yeah.
For the
Yeah.
public to see, so they know?
yes, and we've walked around and I agree, I am not disagreeing with Peter. That if I go back to town meeting and I say, we're eliminating the covers, or we're eliminating the covers because they're too expensive, or we're eliminating the covers because it's an unnecessary expense, and people vote with me, fine. But I don't wanna, in my mind, I've never lied to the public of Eastham, and I'm not gonna start in my last year after just
again,
telling them.
This is just, you're talking to one operator,
Yeah,
No,
You can talk to
we
10
talked to the
operators.
Orleans operator too.
and they can tell you the same or something different, so I don't want you to,
No, it's not just.
I'm also the maintenance guy too, though, I'm also the guys that go out in there and do the work, and it's.
I do think that everyone we've talked to has said, the technology probably works better when it's uncovered, period, right?
Yeah,
Because.
that would make sense.
I know, like I said, in Kingston, we used to put sprayers out there, so when you had the foam issue, would just spray it, and it would knock down everything, and it never really smelled. I mean, we had one time it did smell because the SBR went down.
Yep.
We had a catastrophic failure that we had to, but it's, I think even with a cover, it probably would have smelled for a day or two because we were doing the work on it, because we'd have to have it uncovered to do the work.
Right,
Whatever the message is that gets delivered, it isn't you're uncovering everything. You're just uncovering the SBRs, which are the,
I want to have that
yeah.
data. I just
And,
wanna have
and, yeah,
It
and
matters.
I get,
And well, it'd be good because we'll have a price for the covers and a price for the odor.
And I promise I
For
will do the
those-
heavy lifting if we have to eliminate the covers, just as I have
You will?
done all along.
You
Absolutely.
can point at us, so we don't mind.
Well, you can always say something and help me out.
I'd be happy.
Jesus.
I'd be happy.
No, that's good, okay,
I just think it's just,
I get you.
Question, I may be the only one beating the drum on this one, is value engineering. Has there been any value engineering attempts? What's going on at this point?
So, you know, the, our group is looking into the 60% design, you know, we got them a little over a week ago, so we, we'll have some, stuff to share, by next, a week from today.
So there'll be some sort of a report that we'll have at
I
the,
don't think it'll be a report, but I think it's probably gonna lag a little bit behind. Maybe a week or so, but we'll, you know, we'll talk about big picture stuff.
okay,
For, you know, like the big stuff, like, you know, we're not going to recommend anything other than the SBR, right? Because that just,
oh, no, I
Yeah.
realize that.
it just may be, some conceptual stuff around the building, maybe we could save some money here, maybe some different concepts. They may not need to agree with it, but just, you know, it's a preference, something to discuss with the group, so.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think when we talked about it with Apex as well, it's, you know, they can also present, hey, we think that these would be good items to add as alternates, either adds or deducts for discussion as well, that would be some of that value engineering where, hey, well, we could get that price and actually see what that cost impact is to you. And it determines whether or not you're getting the Caddy or you're getting the Buick or whatever, you know,
yeah, absolutely.
I have to, I deal with a lot of you know, a lot of boards that I have to sit on for all the contractor or clients that we have, so I always use the Cadillac, Buick, Chevy, it just plays off pretty well.
some of the things that we would love to get from you as well are the things that tend to slip through the cracks, like how do you want the lab set, like what kind of actual things do you want to have in the lab? Like we want stools, or we want chairs, or we want beakers, or we want a autoclave, or, you know,
That's-
that kind of, those kinds of things.
Do you want to do the lab work in-house or are you gonna sub it out? Well, the majority of the stuff that we do, I sub out because for me to have a lab tech, it's not. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. I can send it out and
So
they
that,
take care of it and I get the results back and I send it to DEP and they're, you know, everybody's happy.
so that's what we need is like, hey, well, if we're gonna, because usually operators tell us that even when they sub all the, like the main lab stuff out, they're like, hey, we like to do some pH testing, we do this, or we,
Yeah,
you
that's.
know, we're gonna, so those are kinds of things we want to make sure that we don't have a specification that's written as if, like, because we have some where we, you know, we'll do soup to nuts for a treatment plant where they have their own operators and they're getting everything, you know, straight out versus if we know that East Ham's gonna contract out most of the lab work, we want to know what you want to have, even for like your ground, like, are you going to be going out the groundwater monitoring? Are you going to hire, you know, Verdantis to do your groundwater monitoring as part of your monitoring program? You know, because they already do a lot of your well monitoring as well. Maybe there's a piece of equipment or something that they want that would be worthwhile to have that we buy for the treatment plant. But they can use for that monitoring program. So you have that stuff available to you, you know, even like a water level indicator or something like that, you know, it sounds silly. But, you know, it's a couple $100, and if we're doing it at the end, it starts to add up when the contractor gets it as a change order and we have to do all this stuff when you can get, you know, these things kind of built into your contract, you know, with the SRF thing.
Do you have a permit?
We are going to be getting a permit, so
Okay.
we don't have a permit yet. But it's gonna be your DEP standard until
This is what, it's zone 2 though, correct?
it is.
So you got TOC.
Yes, we have the TOC removal. That's why we have the carbon on the back end.
the two biggest things that DEP has been hounding me on, in a good way, because a lot of the plants that we have are older plants and stuff. Any hatch covers, they want the safety grading. They don't want to see the nets anymore.
Yep.
For the pump stations and everything, so oversized hatches work great, because when you're using a crane truck to pull out the pumps, you want to have space to be able to maneuver. And then the influent sampling, they want a true raw influent. They don't want the recycle stuff. They want completely raw. So
Yep,
that's been one of
that's-
the things.
So I am aware of that from my background as a process engineer. I always like to see a true raw. So we're probably going to be having a composite sampler outside of the headworks, which will be taking from the influent sewer.
Perfect.
And then I think I've got all my returns and all my recycles I have directing into the influent wet well, which will be downstream of the influent sample.
Perfect. That's because, like I said, that's their one of the big hangups lately.
But you'll be looking at equipment locations and access to equipment and
Yeah,
cleaning filters and
because
what.
there's nothing worse when you go to pull a pump and you get your setup and then you're fighting the hatch covers because the pump is 3 feet wide and you have a 2.5 foot hatch that you gotta try to angle it to get it out. So the bigger the hatch for depending on the size of the pump, obviously. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I know it's not shown, I think, on the 60% drawings, and I know this is probably going to be something you're going to comment on, but we will be having a monorail over the influent pumps, which aren't really shown well on there, but we are going to be having a monorail for that. We're going to be having lifting equipment for the grit system. I need to coordinate with our structural and mechanical folks and all that stuff, but I'm going to have a lifting system to be able to pull that tube out of the center of the grit system inside the building. Most of the pumps are all, we have that, I don't know how much you've looked at the design, but we've got that pipe tunnel design. We're going to have the waste sludge pumps and all that down in that pipe tunnel. So that's going to be, accessible. It's not like it's on a slide rail. So, I think the carbon feed pumps, the layout for that isn't quite done yet, but I was probably going to be looking at using like a davit crane type thing to pull those out. I was going to put in a socket there for a davit crane to pull those pumps.
Starting with the Cadillac.
Just go for it.
Jim, so some of these things are getting added into the design and the construction of the plant. Obviously, they make the operation more efficient down the road, but does that translate into any savings on an ops contract, for example?
I'd have to. Possibly, depending on what it is, once we see it. It's very hard to, again, I haven't fully looked at this and I apologize. I wish.
I don't mean
No,
this,
no,
I
no,
don't mean
we
this.
didn't
But
expect
certain plants, if I can get to a pump easily, my maintenance cost, instead of charging 8 hours to do a job for 2 guys in a truck, it's only 4 hours because I have the access. Now, if I have to build something to make it safe for the guys to do the work, anything that's safe that we can do beforehand, it makes the job easier for any operations company or even if it's town employees, because you're not worried about the safety part of it.
Right.
I don't want to speak out of school, but I think it's pretty safe to say for everybody here that we want to build what we need to have as efficient and
Yep.
safe an operation of
Yes.
this plant for the next 20 or 30 years.
Exactly, but what you don't wanna do is build something and then I have to come in or another company or whoever comes in and then when we have to build a crane so we can get to this.
Yeah.
To this project.
Or come in and say, well, why'd they do it this way? It would have been smarter to do it that way. So that's what you're gonna be doing.
Yes.
as part of this contract and.
Yeah.
but you
They'll
haven't-
they'll be here next week.
Yes,
Yeah.
you'll have the whole team here next week.
And you'll,
Be quiet.
you haven't had time to really look deep into it.
No, I've only,
You just get
the
up.
past probably 4 days, I've got glimpses of looking at it, in between.
So by next week, though.
Yeah, we'll have,
As you can tell, we're getting close to
Yep.
the point of no return, so if you see something should be shifted.
Yeah.
So we, as a cost that the town, it isn't captured in our cost right now, but it's a cost that the town, because it depends on how you want to do it. You should factor in having, after the facility's built, usually the town would pay for someone to do all the confined space signage and I don't know what the rule is on arc flash and stuff like that. I'm a little gray on, I think that's an extra, I think there's another study that's done for like.
See, we'd have, for Whitewater, our safety department would come out.
So would you, so it could be part of their contract,
Ask you.
Yeah, we could.
but I just want to make sure that that's captured somewhere, because sometimes that falls through the cracks and we don't typically, as part of our design, do all that signage. It's easier to have the operators and someone else that comes in that's doing the facility, they can do all that.
Yeah.
Stuff. So if that's something that Whitewater can do, I would make sure that when they give their proposal for that work, that they include.
That SRF reimbursable if they do it.
No, it's part of the operation.
Operation.
Yeah.
That would just be probably like a separate work order to come out to do, not part of an operational cost. It's just this is what it's gonna take to do it. Because you're gonna have 12 pump stations, I believe it was. Not all at one time,
Five.
five, so, you know, you'd want those 5 to have like the confined space on the hatch cover. You know, arc flash on the control panel.
So maybe it could be part of the project.
Jeff, one thing, and maybe I can check to see what I did at Wareham, but arc flash might be under the electrical contractor. That might be their scope of work.
Okay, we'll have to, yeah, it's not my area of expertise by any stretch of the imagination. If it's already covered, that's fine. I just want to make sure that it doesn't get lost on.
Thank
You
you, I
know.
love that. We don't want surprises.
Yeah,
Jeff, are you doing in-house electrical?
Design.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the disciplines are in-house.
Because there were no electrical drawings or specifications in the package.
There should have been.
There was a line diagram on the electrical.
Oh, there might have been the one line, I think.
But no drawings.
Yeah, so
Specs.
because when we kind of like do our 30, 60, 90 percentages and things like that, they aren't all, we don't typically have every discipline at the same point. So when we're at 60%, and I apologize, I mean, we are kind of trying to get this done in as short a window as we have. So the electrical is behind the rest of the team because they have to wait until, you know, Dave's team's got all the equipment identified and they got all the motors sized and they've figured out all that equipment process and structural's done all those things. So they tend to end up having to come in sort of after. So I think they're more at 30 plus. I think they have one lines. I think we have the PNIDs all done. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. What other things I'm missing?
I think it was like the one lines, the electrical. We had some preliminary sizing on the generator. But yeah, I mean, as Jeff mentioned, electrical is always lagging on the design. You know, they're typically the last ones to finish up because they have to, like, as Jeff mentioned, they have to wait for process to finish all their designs so they know all the loads and where the instrumentation is going. And then they have to know, you know, then HVAC mechanical, they have to pick up from them. So it's just, they're always going to be, you know, lagging behind. So.
But we are working through like coordinating with them as well in terms of like, I'm making sure that, you know, we got duct banks and things like that. So they're working with Site Civil on what the pathway is for the main power feed in there and how we're running duct banks between the various different buildings and to the generator and things like that. So.
And I think we did get, if I remember correctly, we are currently looking at a natural gas fired generator. I think based on the sizing, we were able to get one. I think we're just waiting to get back from National Grid to to get the confirmation on the sizing of the sizing of the utility line.
Yeah, the gas service, what's available gas
service. That's right.
What's the road it's off of?
Oh,
I believe that's 2-inch.
The gas.
2-inch line, yeah, I believe.
Well, there's a transmission line going out.
Transmission line would be 6-inch.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
Isn't it 6
Yeah, I
inch?
think it's a 6-inch medium or high pressure line.
Okay.
So
I guess the question is, Eversource need to.
It's the pressure that you gotta worry about.
Depending on the water column, right? Because
Yeah.
based on the size of the generator. Yeah.
I did back in the day, I worked, RH White owns Whitewater, so I used to do the gas. So I did a lot of work for RH White doing the gas utilities up here, so.
okay. Yeah.
One of the.
So yeah,
one of-
we are following up with the gas fire generator.
And gas usually is cheaper than diesel, isn't it? I think.
The equipment or the fuel.
Yeah, to buy the generator, sometimes it's cheaper to buy it, get it in gas as opposed to diesel.
Do you know the condition of the site where the buildings are going? Is it undisturbed soils underneath, or is it? Is there, I guess my question is there any further investigation required to?
we
So
did
I can
our-
speak,
Go ahead.
we did have a we did have our geotechnical firm go out, do the borings. I think we're still waiting to get the final geotech report. I will follow up with them, Jeff. But there was only really one area where there was some suspect soil, but it's in a area where we were going to be excavating anyway. So that suspect soil was going to be removed from the, basically it's over excavated. It's in a portion of the treatment building where I need to dig down about 10 feet below that area anyway. So
So your foundations will be on undisturbed locations.
yeah,
most, because we're going into the ground in most of the places anyway, so we're cutting out a lot of that material, so we're gonna be getting into that good native material.
Make sure there's no
Yeah.
trash.
yeah, like
some-
20 feet down. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is that sort of storage area that as you're heading from DPW towards the transfer station is a little roadway. And off on the right, there's some of that sort of storage area, and even on the left a little bit, I think where we're putting
Junk,
some of the beds, yeah,
junk storage.
there's sort of junk storage there, but I think we're going down far enough that all that stuff's coming out.
And with the transfer station getting shortened a little bit, will there be any cost to the town as far as pavement, revised routes?
I don't think the transfer stations
No.
get short.
No,
I think you do approach.
so we're
It's extending.
So we're encroaching into the area that's kind of like where your metal recycling
Right.
used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going away. I was told that was being, I think John mentioned that was
Moving it.
moving somewhere else. And we're gonna restore the pavement, but we check the turning radiuses on all the, basically the big rigs that have to go in to collect the trash out of those.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever you call those things, your trash silos.
Yeah.
What,
Well, the
And is that
canister,
the closest point to the current transfer
Yeah.
station?
the closest point will be where the metal, will be where the metal,
Yeah.
yeah, where the metal storage is the closest
I
that
think
we're
you
gonna
got
do.
canister storage there too. So,
Cause I think that the filter building and the ops building kind of goes to the edge of the existing pavement, but doesn't really, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, I don't think it really encroaches that much into that existing paved area. It's really the treatment plant building that was doing any of the real encroachment down that hill.
And you can't see the SBRs can I see the SBRs from the transfer station?
In a drone.
I think we actually had a rendering of that. Let me see if I can find it.
He's gonna find the rendering.
this isn't a question I'm looking for an answer now, but obviously we're all concerned about baseline experiences, change orders and stuff like that during the course of the job. From a quality document control status, what's your process when you get down to the final design to review the documents? Second party access to the documents? Do you hire a second party? Do you have internal departments? How do you look at your own drawings and say, I reviewed them, they're complete, they're accurate to our best of our ability, and we've done a great job putting them together? How do you look at that and approach that at the end of the
So we have, so this one's a little bigger, cause you've got a couple other
Like I say, you
parties
don't have to
involved.
answer me now, but
No, but
I just
but-
wanted, something that we should be talking about in the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, so in general, what we do is we have our own internal review documents. So as we go through various steps, we get the disciplines to say that their senior person or whoever's going to be signing off on
Right.
the, like the structural architecture or whatever is going to be able to sign off on those pieces. And then the person that, we have a senior engineer who works on a lot of our treatment plants. She also does her big picture review after we've all done our sort of internal. So
But do
the-
they do an actual constructability review that says this drawing shows it 2 inches, so it's 4 inches?
yeah, so So that's what we we do that internally with our staff, and then we get the comments back from Apex. So in this case, you're gonna have also Apex looking at our drawings. It sounds like you're gonna have Whitewater looking at them from an operability
But it is a
standpoint.
true detailed constructability review of the documents. Which takes a lot of time to do.
It does, and
Okay,
I will tell you that the woman that does this in our office, you know, talks about how much effort and time it does take to go through and look at all the disciplines and compare them against the other disciplines to make sure we don't have conflicts. The nice thing is that we are using the 3D modeling that'll help identify some of those pipe conflicts and other conflicts and grade conflicts earlier than you would normally do in old school flat paper.
AI hasn't hit me yet then.
I'm sorry,
I
what?
said you don't use AI yet, do you?
No, we don't use AI, but, well, we are using AI, but not in that, we're not using it for, you know, control stuff. So, that's generally how we do it internally. So, and we rely on our, you know, our senior staff that are the ones that are gonna be stamping and signing the drawings that, they've reviewed those documents and are
Have you
comfortable.
ever used second party constructability reviews? And what's your?
So I think in our contract, we may, just for the, I know for the cost estimate, I think we were gonna be sending this also out for, I think,
Estimator.
a second, yeah, for an estimator. I think that was part of the contract, if I'm not and I apologize, I don't have it all.
We doing that as well on our end, so we do have a third party.
So, but we haven't, we don't typically send that out, because we have usually the expertise all in-house for all that. If it was, I don't know that it's built into our contract to hire a third party to go and
It's not.
and do that. So just based on our firm, that's what we've typically done.
Looks like a church.
So where am I standing? This being owned by the bottle recycling?
Jeez, this is.
So
challenging.
this rendering here, I think the picture was taken standing about here.
Okay, so that's the bottle recycling, yeah.
Yeah, looking towards the treatment building and the operations building, which are going to be about in this area.
I see.
I don't think we encroached much past this fence line,
There's a
but I would
fence,
have to look at the, I'd have to look at the two drawings side by side again. That's kind of, that was the rendering that was developed a few weeks ago. I think that this roof line right up here got raised a little bit. Kind of hard to
what building
see.
is that then?
What's that?
What building is that?
That's the
So
treatment.
this back here is the treatment building. This in right kind of
Yeah.
where this stair is the SBR structure.
Yeah, so that's all you're gonna see from the, you know, you see the stair of the SBR and you're not, right, you'd have to be in a drone.
It looked
to
like a
see.
humongous garage apartment.
No, I know. And those look like big garage doors.
So
Yeah.
this building over here, actually,
Yeah.
so this is the operations building.
Yeah.
The office portion is this low roof section. Over in here, this is where we're going to have our tertiary filtration. So we're going to have the cloth media disc filters and the carbon units. It has to be so high because those carbon units are about 20 some feet tall. And these are actually, they're called a cowl wall, which is a translucent panel that's removable, so that if you need to remove those filter vessels in the future, well, if you need to replace the future filter vessels in the future, the new filter vessels will come in through the side of the wall. Through basically, you'll take out the cowl wall and you'll slide the new filter in.
They have them at Chatham if you want to, if you wanted to see what the translucent. Yeah, those are the same translucent, although these are dark. I don't know if you can get them in different.
I think you can get them in different colors or.
But they let light in.
Yeah, they let like they're translucent panels.
It's a very cool feature.
Yeah.
And the beds are in front of those.
So
Yeah,
the sand beds,
Right in there.
the sand
They're
beds
gonna-
will basically be where the kind of where this in this area between the new treatment facility and the DPW in the background here, in this area, kind of encompassing up in this area, the old salt shed, up to the
Yeah.
DPW and kind of, I think we even
Along
extended a
those
little beyond in the back here. So that's the area where we'll have the sand beds. And I think the other one is
Is
up
right where that sand
here.
pile is. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And that's where some of the questionable fill material is as well, like that's what
Oh,
we just have
and
to be
that-
careful about.
I see.
If there's fill, whether or
Sorry,
not we want
Grace.
to recharge them. Right?
Thank you.
The back of the building is right up close to the rail trail. Is there any coordination with the state of Massachusetts as far as
We
setbacks?
want to deal with those guys.
Yeah, so we were dealing we were been looking at the setbacks, and I think we had a call a week or two ago, Jeff, about the setbacks, and so we're following all the setbacks and rules, et cetera. There was actually a rendering here that was developed basically from looking at the rail trail, looking back at the DPW. I think that's the DPW over here, and the filter building would be, or the treatment building would be over here. And so really with that tree screening and the setbacks, we're going to have, you're probably hardly going to realize it's there.
But DCR has at least a 20-foot right away. 'Cause
Yeah,
that-
we're not-
That path is behind my house too. So
Yeah.
I know how wide it is.
So we're staying on the town's property and we're staying 25 feet off at a minimum off of,
Off that line.
well, in terms like, so there's an access road, but the beds have to be 25 feet, so they're 25 feet to basically the bottom of the bed from that fence line. And then I can't remember what the building is. I think where the building and the odor control both more than 25, I think it's 25 and 50 feet. Is that what they are?
Yeah, let me, I'm looking to see if I can bring up the drawings here.
So the railroads, the DCR started putting little tickets on my trees to tell me that that's their problem.
Never deal with them again.
So I think we're also gonna put a fence and potentially tree line that as
Yeah.
well, because some of that tree buffer is gonna dwindle because your property line is in some of that wooded buffer. Right.
Solar panels out of the discussion, or are they?
We're designing the roof structures for solar panels, but we're not putting them in the project. So the roof, and we actually even talked about whether or not, and I don't know if this got back to the town yet. There was a question that came up at one of our meetings of whether or not you wanted the salt shed roof designed, because that one would actually probably be in the correct orientation. So would you like the salt shed roof design to be able to hold
Yes,
solar panels?
like 5 more pounds a square foot, I think.
Hmm.
I was gonna ask about solar. Are the dormers that are shown on the treatment building necessary, or are they just for looks? So I think there's a couple of gable dormers on the east side.
I think you said it was for pop-up equipment.
Yeah, I think it was for being able to lift the equipment up.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll have to follow up with our architectural group
And then on
as
the
far as
same-
the dormers.
along the same line, the latest drawings actually show some snorkels coming up for vents or whatever they are, exhausts. And could you look at those and see that they're, minimized or ganged together so that doesn't interfere with the future solar array?
The vents through the roof.
Those,
Yeah, so I can take those and I can bring them up at our design meeting tomorrow.
okay,
They may be required to be there by Mass Plumbing Code. So we might,
you may
but we
be
could
able to-
probably look to see if we can maybe put it in a different location to,
or bunch them together.
minimize
instead of
impact.
Scattered around, yeah.
yeah.
And that 4-pitch roof that you've got on those buildings actually works pretty well for solar panels, even in that east-west orientation. So I think that potentially there's a good potential for some good production out of solar panels on those relatively flat roofs, even though they don't face south.
Yeah, so that's why we were gonna design it to to hold it, but we just
Yeah.
weren't gonna be putting them on.
Right, but then just.
Yep.
Think of any other things that might be in the way.
Yep.
And then, have you gotten so far as to think about the HVAC for the buildings? Is it gonna be, do you know what the source is gonna be?
I mean, in terms of heat?
Yeah, in terms of heat, yep. And.
So-
How to be gas.
Yep. Go ahead, Dave.
So the operations building, we are going to be designing for a water source heat pump. It'll be taking, using the plant effluent as a heat sink.
Wow.
And then we're going to be having the operations building then using that. Now, the treatment building, I think based on just the air changes per hour for classified spaces that we need to accommodate for, account for that, I believe we were looking at natural gas. So we're going to have a natural gas fired boiler in the treatment building.
The ground source, heat pump couldn't keep up.
I do not think so. So.
Too many air exchanges, especially in the dead of winter.
Yeah, so the big thing is the headworks. It's the headworks area has to be 12 air changes per hour, and I think the rest of it is 6 air changes per hour, depending on the space. Now, I think we are incorporating. I was trying to see if I could get a 3D model here and of the, well, maybe I can't get a 3D model of the plumbing structure right now, but
Well, I guess my point would be, thinking down the road, in the future, if, where we might go towards more electrified equipment and, that we should at least explore the possibility for using it now in the design.
okay.
But only because potentially it could save cost. That'd be the only reason for any of this stuff.
Sure.
It could save town money in the long haul. And maybe a benefit to the environment, but it's just.
I can certainly raise that with our HVAC folks to see as far as what are the options for electrification of building heat.
One more question while I have you, in terms of noise. Last meeting, we talked about having sludge pumps inside the buildings, and are they there at this point?
So pretty much all of the equipment is going to be inside the building other than the odor control fans. That's really going to be, the odor control fans are really going to be the only equipment that is outdoors.
And then the Orleans plant manager mentioned that their plants were sized large enough, their pumps were sized large enough so that the vacuum pumps on the trucks didn't have to run. So it kept it quieter when the sludge was being transferred to the trucks to be taken away. Are you considering that?
So we're going to have a sludge transfer pump in the basement of the treatment building that will be capable of pumping to tanker trucks for hauling offsite.
And the tanker trucks won't have to use their vacuums.
No.
Correct. To be honest, I've never designed a sludge hauling station where the sludge hauler had to use the vacuum pump on the truck for hauling. I have always provided a pump to fill the tanker.
Right. What was the third thing on the noise? Was the noise from the air intakes?
So was that the noise, was in Orleans?
From the blowers.
From the intake and the blowers, right?
The blowers are in the building. So
The
that,
blowers are in the building, but they.
No, I think you mean like, yeah, where it's drawing the air from,
Pulling air
where
in
it's
from
pulling,
outside,
yeah.
and Orleans had a problem with that.
There was a hum over there.
Yeah, it was a noise, and they ended up having to put some inline noise, attenuators in the basement in the building after the fact. And, you know, noise is an issue, so.
We've definitely discussed it with our group about the fact that there is the concern and wanting to make sure that, you know, our intake and discharge louvers and things like that that are related to the HVAC, because we understand the air changes are gonna happen 24/7.
Yeah.
So when it doesn't make noise, because it's middle of the day, you're not gonna notice it, but at
night.
1 in the morning, you'll hear that, you know, pool motor hum or whatever, however you want it, whatever the analogy you want to use, but you'll hear that hum, and we're gonna try to, that's what we talked about, how we could try to mitigate that. So you don't have those
Isn't
kinds of
that the major
situations.
complaint over?
They were getting complaints from across the marsh in Brewster.
And so part of what we're doing is we have the, and I don't know what the status is, this, Dave, because we talked last week, but we have we're having equipment come out to do noise, baseline testing. So they're gonna do that for a week in 3 different locations. We'll have an idea 24/7 what the noise conditions are. And then we can give that to our noise team, and they can, I call them the noise team. I don't know. They have some probably cooler name than
Acoustical
that.
engineers.
And they're going to look at the design of those things as well and give us an idea of where, you know, how loud, based on the equipment we have and the size of the louvers and the location of them, what we're gonna hear at the various different, what we potentially would hear at different spots. It's a model, it's not exact, but it'll give us a good idea. And if we think that, you know, oh, we really need to do something on that, then, you know, we're trying to take that into consideration of the design.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, how close is the closest house?
About 500, 600 feet.
So you got a pretty good buffer before it gets to that point.
Yes,
But
definitely.
at night, when everything is, this town is amazingly quiet at night.
Once
You
they
hear a
get
pin
it,
drop.
Yeah,
they
Not
stop
one
here.
neighborhood, it's not very quiet.
Really?
I'm
You
thinking
have-
500 feet, you got the scrub pines that are there, you're gonna have a fence that's up.
We're probably gonna add some.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be a,
There's one of
It's a
those
good
things,
buffer.
especially in Orleans, it was, I think it was the matter of,
Couple of.
once you hear something, you never unhear it.
Yeah.
I don't know what-
but I mean, I can say on the flip side, I operate the Kingsway wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah.
With the community there, and we got, the units are right next to the
Right there,
plant, and we're using roots blowers that scream when they run. And you can't hear them once you get to the gate, it's quiet,
That's great.
so I mean, it's a lot closer and there's nothing really in between. So the building itself is a tremendous insulator for it.
I think it must have
Yeah.
been just some design issue with the Orleans plant that
Might
caused
have
that.
been, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be other ambient noise as well that we just.
And there
We could hear
are
when we were
people
on
who
the
are
trip.
just sensitive
Yeah.
to noise.
Yeah.
And specific frequencies of noise. So we're getting to the end of our time for today.
Yep.
And we have a couple more things to discuss, just to run by you.
Yeah, not too much, but we'll,
Okay.
we had talked to Jim, so.
Thank you,
um,
Jim.
Okay, so well, thank you.
Distributed the contract with White.
And I'll give each one of you a card as I leave, so that if you have any questions,
Thank you.
you can shoot me an email.
Just
And we're gonna
one last
spend a
thing on,
Oh,
if
sorry.
I
go ahead,
can,
Dave.
one last thing on the lab.
Yeah.
So I think that I was always approaching this when, you know, even from the TWMP days, I was figuring that our lab, you know, would be contract operations, and we'd have probably most of our analytical would be being sent off site. But, you know, I think what we're just looking for is what, from a contract operations perspective, what is the minimum level of equipment that you would like to see in the lab space?
Mhm.
I will have that for you on Tuesday.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So we're gonna spend a long time together, Tuesday.
Next one on the
And is
person.
the agenda,
It's a little old, but it'll work.
Mostly fixed.
With Whitewater, is there any equipment manufacturers that may
Such
have-
as,
that aren't currently listed in the specs that you have high confidence in?
I haven't looked at all of it, so I apologize.
I realize
Next
that.
Tuesday.
I'm just saying by next
that.
week, maybe look at some of the
Yeah,
equipment.
I will take a look and,
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure. Honestly, all the equipment wherever they're getting it from, where we get it from, it's pretty much all the same.
Yeah.
Well, you're using it, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, if it's something you know to stay away from or
Right,
something,
yeah.
you'd like to know.
Well, but we can't.
Well, you can look at some of the components within the equipment and say that doesn't work. Why are we paying for it?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a manufacturer that you really had no success
Yeah.
with and you don't think that you're gonna get response to, or they, you know, you've
my
had
biggest
other,
thing that I fight with right now, and I've, since COVID, is getting pumps.
yeah.
I'm fighting for pumps, no matter, I'm switching manufacturers for my clients all the time because it's availability that I go for. What can I get at the quickest time? Because if something's down, I don't have the luxury of waiting,
Right.
4 months for it to come in, so it's.
And all these pumps are specific to a task that we can't stage replacements.
We
Me,
can definitely
is-
specify shelf spares if you would like.
Exactly, I was gonna say, have spare pumps, 1 spare or 2 spares.
So it'd be helpful for us as well when you're looking at it, like small things and big things.
Yeah.
Things that you know that, oh my God, the last plant I worked at, they didn't have any of these little, whatever it is, filters, whatever, you know, things that we can specify them now so
Yeah.
that, you know, there's some things you don't want sitting on a shelf for
Yeah,
eons. But there are some other things that are
Exactly.
that you go through pretty regularly that we could specify and make sure that they're included in there. And then like Dave said, if you
I mean,
want,
for me,
Have
just
you-
so everybody knows, full disclosure, I do a lot of private companies, private plants. So my clients aren't gonna have the spare pump sitting on a shelf because
Right.
most pumps only have a 1-year warranty. So I'm not gonna buy a new pump and not use it. So I have tended to, when I had to buy a pump for somebody, we'll install that new pump. I'll pull the old pump out and I might send it out to a machine shop just to have them go through it and then bring it back to set it on the shelf. Cause it's beyond the warranty at that point. So
But there's no single point of failure type pumps
a pump,
in the
I've
plant.
I've installed a brand new pump and go to turn it on
Yeah, no, I
and it
mean,
doesn't work, so.
we just, why this is where you can't run the plant.
Last thing on here is, we did talk to you guys, spoke to the finance committee, spoke to the select board about hiring the municipal utilities director, or whatever we end up calling this position. And everybody's supportive. We have money within our unallocated budget, within the project. So we think we're gonna move forward with that, maybe by the end of this week or next week. Have some sort of advertisement out, working on a job description. I gotta meet with DPW and try to finalize that. And then, I gotta figure out a strategy between now and next couple of months. And what are we gonna do on the operating budget? So, that'll be coming up with the finance committee.
That's the 1.5 million.
Yeah. how
I'm kind of
we
regretting
introduce
now
them.
that, maybe we should have had the override for 1.5 million as part of the vote. But we didn't, so.
It seemed like a long time away.
What's the flow gonna be?
For the first phase?
Yeah,
One.
it's like it's like 150,000 or something average. Is that right, Dave? Somewhere in there?
Oh, geez, I don't remember the exact
147.
number anymore, but that sounds about right.
Plus or minus.
I can have like a
Yeah,
budgetary operational cost for you guys.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, that's right, that depends on the permit, and that's kind of, so,
we have.
I'll go off of one of our other plants that we do.
Right out of the gate.
And kind of give you like an idea, I'm assuming it's probably like 4 hours a day for the one,
Yeah, I mean,
as long as everything's remote access and stuff too, that's the other part of this.
I can, you know, we could probably even send you like the Mashpee permit, which is gonna be like a.
Could you send that, if you can send that to me, I can go off of that and I'll give you a budgetary. It's gonna be a rudimentary, cost for operational contract, so.
So, it might be interesting for you to hear or know, but, the person we're looking for this position, we want them to be licensed for both water and wastewater.
Yep.
And, I don't know how impactful that is to,
Contract.
Whitewater, and your contract, because I know you gotta have a certain amount of licensed people on site.
Yeah.
Does that reduce that, and does that have some utility for us to do it?
I could have a lower licensed operator do it. But you'd still want a higher, because if your gentleman ever quit, then you don't have that proper coverage, then you're
Well,
liable.
that's exactly why we have an ops contract.
Yeah.
Because we have this problem in Yarmouth and other towns that, they won't sign off on the things, and you gotta threaten to let them go if they don't, have like, so it gets rough, but, it's kind of a hybrid model that we're contemplating, and, obviously we'd have to work with you on what that looks like and how that works, but that's kind of what we're thinking about.
Yep. No, I know like up here, the foreman, Brian, I don't know if you met him because we do the water here.
Mhm.
Brian Ford, he's licensed in both. Water and wastewater,
Yeah.
so,
Perfect.
you know, we do have dual license. Me, unfortunately, I'm not. I just like wastewater. I've never been a water per se guy. I'd rather do the dirty stuff and make it clean than just pump it out of the ground and send it out. I mean, I know there's a little bit more to it, but,
Not offending me. I'm always-
I just, water, my thing is with water, and this is just me, it's a personal thing. If I screw up, I'm gonna kill somebody with it. You know, you give them too much sodium hydroxide or whatever, you know, something fails. That's always been my failure of, and I worry about the slightest things. So that's why I never did good with the water, because I worry about this chemical pump, is it working or not? And my stress level needs to be down here, not up here. So that's my, you know, at least wastewater, I know I can recycle it and keep it going and. But the other guys do a great job with it, so. And we do the maintenance on both. That's one of the things, so it works out well.
Thank you. See you at 10 o'clock.
10 a.m. Tuesday.
We'll have to rearrange the room.
It's Tuesday.
You get going?
We got
I will not be there, but